which are flashing for you. Revenue is largely in line. If you have to say, it's a mild miss at 11,547 crore rupees, but there's nothing to really complain about there. Again, the net profits are also absolutely in line with the CNBC TV 18 poll, has come in at 1,988 crore rupees. The expectation was of 1,980 crore rupees. We'll just calculate the margins in a bit as well, and we will get some analysts to comment on the numbers as well. But this time around, in terms of preview, the poll suggested that revenues were expected to go up by 13.5%. EBITDA was expected to go up by 21%. Margins were expected at 20% versus 19%. So 100 basis points increase is what was expected because of a rich mix in domestic motorcycles. Export markets were also seeing gradual recovery as per the commentary coming in from the management as well. And lower input costs, better mix and operating leverage was to support margins this time around as well. But we're still getting the margin number. For now, the stock is trading at the highs of the day, and so far the street seems to be liking the basics that we have got as well. But of course, we would need numbers in terms of margins as well. There you go. It is spiked in how it's up 1.5% right now, Bajaj Auto stock. So the street seems to be liking the basic numbers that we have got. Volume growth came in at 7.3% in quarter one. It is expected to be a decent quarter, and so far these are the numbers that we have gotten. The basics, where net profit has come in absolutely in line with estimates, and revenues also
largely in line with what the CNBC poll was throwing up. Like you mentioned, the profitability is largely in line with what the street was anticipating. Remember, just a couple of weeks back, the stock did quite well, especially after a significant launch did come by. So we'll wait and watch by, number one, for the operating margin figure and the commentary that the company did. Remember, in the last couple of quarters, company also did pretty large buyback as well. We also have Abhishek, who's joining us Abhishek from Sharekhan, who's an auto analyst. Abhishek, you've seen the basic numbers on the screen. What is the first, reaction that you have to this particular set of numbers that Bajaj Auto has delivered?
So, prima facie numbers are looking broadly in line with our estimates that we are also expecting flat to marginal growth in bottom line on the QOQ basis, and the numbers are saying the same thing. Broader thing that in this quarter, while the company has reported a 7% kind of a growth in the volume, but the volume mix was quite better in most of the segments. Export mix and the three-wheeler mix was flat, but this motorcycle mix has improved significantly, and that has been translated into kind of a performance. Just for an example, that this above 125cc segment has contributed roughly 39% to the volume compared to the 31% in the previous year. Beyond that, I would also like to highlight that because this Egypt government has accepted a quadricycle as a recognized public transportation. The export for quadricycle has improved significantly in this quarter. This has been almost double. And third, this EV sales has been increased to over 40,000 units. So I suppose that has been supported performance in this particular quarter. Margin thing, I'm also waiting for that.
The margin number, Abhishek, has come in at 20.2%. The expectation was around a 20% margin. And of course, the last year saw a margin of 19%. How do you look at this number?
See, almost the margin picture is almost in line with my estimates. My estimate was 20.3%. So with this improved product mix and the stabilization of this export volume, the company has been sustaining this 20% kind of EBITDA margin for last, I think this quarter would be the consecutive third quarter when it has been sustained 20% kind of a margin. So going forward, I think with this the continued improvement in the product mix, the company is expected to sustain this 20% margin in the coming quarters. And beyond that, we will see some kind of a uptick in the motorcycle sales and continued traction in the 125cc segment for this company.
Thanks for that, Abhishek. We also have Ashwin Patil. Ashwin, first up, we want your take on the numbers as well. A 7% volume growth and margins have expanded, and it's in fact come slightly above what our poll was looking at. Our poll was working with a number of close to 20%. It's coming at 20.2%. How do you see the numbers? Do you expect any EPS upgrades to come about?
See, the numbers have been quite decent. Nothing great as such, but 7% volume growth we were all knowing. But the margins have come slightly above our expectations. We were expecting close to about 20.1, so they have come at about 20.2%. So that is slightly above our expectations. Also, the stock has rallied a lot in the past, and going forward, with exports expecting to better their previous performance on the back of the quadri-cycle growth that we are seeing in Egypt, and some sort of uptick again in the African markets also. And in the domestic markets, I would say that the 125cc segment going forward should pan out well with their the recently launched CNG bike. That should also pan out well for them in the coming quarters. So that proportion also should improve, and therefore the proportion of the contribution of lower than 125cc should go down, and that may aid margins going forward. So exports and the new bike should, and also the growth in the 125cc segment should aid better margins going forward. So we think that the stock is very much fairly valued, but going forward now we need to listen to the con call which is there in the evening, and the outlook that the company is going to give. So based on that, we think that we'll be revisiting our numbers, but nothing great upgradation in the EPS at this point in time, I think.
Yes, actually the stock saw that spike. It has come off from the highs again. As both our experts have said, that numbers are largely in line, and the stock already has done very well. It's up 44% this year itself. We have Prakash Diwan joining in as well. Prakash, as Ashwin and Abhishek told us, they'll now be listening to the con call, the commentary from the management. Most of the positives are priced in as well. But of course, the CNG price, the bike launch and the export recovery will be key to watch. Do you think there's still some more triggers for an upside on the stock? How do you look at this entire space?
So Sonal, I think you're right. The stock has run up significantly. So what these numbers do, which kind of definitely not just meet expectations but better than marginally, these numbers will help the stock sustain these elevated levels. That's one. Second, it's a bit too early to figure out whether the Freedom launch, the CNG bike launch, is going to be brought up to scale. If that happens, that is going to be a significant trigger, because they will have a head start before others even get into that space. And remember, that's a price-sensitive segment that they cater to. They can scale up very rapidly at the cost of other entry-level bikes. And the last thing is, the raw material side has been fairly benign all these last 2-3 quarters. There's been nothing very alarming about it. And if they were to, let's say, give out some sort of an indication in the con call where the margin improvement levers will still kind of be intact, then, probably the stock gets some more headroom to grow. But otherwise, I think these numbers are fairly decent, justify the stock at these 9,700 plus 9,800 levels. But the triggers are still in the making. This quarter really didn't have much to talk about. And then, of course, the monsoon and post-monsoon season is always better for sales domestically as well, not just exports. But we'll probably wait to see that happen. But otherwise, I think very good numbers. There's no shock in the stock that you would expect on the downside, even if things were to be a bit soft going ahead.
Thank you so much for that, Prakash. On that note, Ashwin, Abhishek, as well as Prakash, thank you so much for joining us and throwing light on the colors of Bajaj Auto. Let's now slip into a short break. The management of DB